All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi folks, just clicking over midday now by my watch, so we'll get the session today started. Surviving the Customer Revolution with Maurice Lieberman as our presenter for today. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm informed there's a little bit of an echo on my line, but we have a cunning plan to sort that out once we get into the presentation. So looking today at the digital revolution and how it's impacting engagement with customers. I guess we've got quite a few customer service people in the audience, probably some marketing folk and a fair bit of FMCG consumer type people looking at the registrations that have come in. So welcome today to you all. Maurice Lieberman, as I say, is our presenter. He brings a wealth of experience in B2C and in IT technology, various technologies, and around the world with many business processes. A little bit more on Maurice later. The sponsor for today's session is Infor, and I'll give them a little bit a rundown later on what Infor is all about, but thanks to them for making the event possible, and they're also covering today's lunch. Just as everyone's coming in the door, quickly do some housekeeping. No need for any note-taking today. There will be a recording that'll be sent out to you tomorrow. So it'll be a recording of the whole session. You can run that at your leisure. If you have to dash off, then that's a good resource to follow up with later on. The main presentation today will be about 30 minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So very keen to have any specific burning questions that you've got that you want Maurice to address, then please get them in. There's a question pane. Sorry, I should be flicking the slide over to show my face. There's a question pane. I'll show you how that works. Click on the little sidebar with the Citrix webinar tool. Open that up. Click on questions. Hit the little plus button. That pane opens up, and if you want to raise questions, then I'll be monitoring those, keeping an eye on them, and we'll address those in the Q&A session. Feel free to do that at any stage. So yes, there is a free lunch today. You're in attendance today, so congratulations, you've registered and attended. The way we do that is send out a voucher. We actually have to mail it out the way these vouchers work. So please make sure in the exit survey that you confirm if you haven't got the right address in there or don't think you put the right address in there when you're registered. Please make sure that you do that when you exit. Okay, so enough from me. Just introducing today Maurice. Maurice has an extensive career, a fair bit of beverage involved in his career. I'll let him comment on whether there's anything behind that, but he was CIO of Cadbury Schweppes across the APAC region, so obviously had a significant role to play there in customer engagement and managing that whole customer interface, I guess both from a consumer perspective and from a trade sales perspective. He had some time with Foster's, the big beer and beverage company from Australia, and then spent some time with Treasury Wines, which was a global wine business, where he implemented their whole e-commerce sales channel. Maurice, how are you doing? You on the line?
Yeah, I think you need to put yourself on mute.
Yeah.
So Hayden, we can have enough of you so that we can hear, because there was a bit of an echo before. But hopefully everyone can hear me.
I will hand the presentation over to you, Maurice, and you can run the show from here, and I'll shut my echo up. Over to you, Maurice.
Okay, thanks. So how's that for everyone? Well, that's good. A crowd that doesn't answer back. I'd firstly like to welcome everyone to the webcast. There's people from New Zealand, Australia, and a couple of others from overseas. And I'd have to say that you're a very good-looking crowd. I think you're the best group that I've ever presented to. So thank you for that. And hopefully in the next hour we can cover firstly a presentation that I've got for you to go through from my own angles and experience, but also be really interested to get some questions from you, either angled at myself or the guys from Infor that are on the line as well. I'm pretty pleased to present this topic because I'm very passionate about it from a number of different angles. I've been in sort of retail, manufacturing, and as you can imagine, being in IT for 20 years, I've had vendors that are all there wanting to sell me something, and we've got a lot of pressure that's being applied to us now with what's happening from the customer landscape, and that's what we want to cover today. So what I'd like to move to next is my first slide, and this is covering what the presentation theme is going to be about. So what I want to talk about is what is happening with our customer base, our user base, and getting an understanding of what they're doing and what is changing and what force they're putting on businesses. Then quickly go through what businesses are doing to react and what options they're needing to come up with to satisfy the customer. By the businesses being under pressure, that of course gets the CIO and IT management involved, and could be also the marketing officers involved as well, because they've got a responsibility to help the business to react. And of course that then places pressure on the whole ERP system, because that needs to be more flexible and also more focused on the customer. And that will then place pressure on the vendors. So it's good for us to get an understanding of what the vendors are doing to respond to that environment. So this is where we come up with surviving the customer revolution, an IT perspective, which is the presentation theme. So if I go to the next slide, and as Hayden said, if you're having problems with either the screen layout or the audio, if you just want to send him a message, because we're all online and we can get the information with that, so that would be great. Okay, so the first thing is probably just to ask all of you there, sitting there at lunchtime, the question would be, how many of you have actually used your iPhone today? How many applications have you used? When you were waking up this morning, sitting in bed and thinking about the day, you were checking your probably some of your email, you're looking what the weather was, what the sporting results, maybe doing a bit of Sudoku and other applications that you've got on there, checking the train timetable, once again checking the weather. How many of you are actually sitting there checking your SAP login or your PeopleSoft requests that have come through? I think that what we've found is a lot of application vendors are able to put a lot of their information into small applications that you need at the time, and you're able to do what you need to do with a small bit of information. How many of you would like to have an application where you get instant feedback, where you get instant information that's come through your ERP platform? You're able to do your job and everything you need is at your fingertips. If you look at the millennials that are coming through, they're demanding to get fun applications, minimal information, different types of styles of applications, and therefore that is placing pressure on the whole design of how ERP vendors are having to react. It's not good enough anymore to be able to say to a person, and I'll use SAP as an example, to say, I know that the screen is not what you'd expect from another application, but please spend a couple of hours typing all the information in. This is what we require to you because the organisation demands it. I think people are starting to react, and they're starting to demand more of the vendor, and that's something that is really increasing. And I know that I've had discussions with a number of the different vendors, Infor that you'll hear from later is starting to respond to that. I mean, so are SAP and Oracle as well. They're all trying to look at what they need to do to respond to that. So the user expectation is higher. The user expectation, customer expectation, basically because they're getting access to all of these small little free applications, that is placing a demand on all of the businesses. If I go to the next slide, I'm sure that you would be able to look at that slide and have a look at the different technologies and know that from an organisational point of view, we're having to deal with the whole social dimension and all social media. Some companies are responding by setting up different divisions. Some organisations are taking advantage. Other organisations have different streams for digital as they do for their traditional media. Some companies are integrating Facebook and other applications into their environment. Others are blocking that. I don't know how many of you that are on the webcast are not able to access YouTube or Facebook, but other organisations are embracing it. So the whole social technology revolution is placing a lot of pressure back on companies. So if I go to the next slide, what I want to just show is looking at the different channels that we have in an operation and giving some examples of that, because you've probably heard of multi-channel and cross-channel, omni-channel. I'm just going to give an example of each. And what I thought I'd do is start off with a single channel. And an example of a company, if you like, where you've got a single channel is the traditional, let's say, Myers, David Jones, where a customer would walk into the store in the old days, if you like, which the old days is probably only about 10 years ago, but they'd walk into a store. That was the only channel that they could buy anything. The shopkeeper had a one-to-one relationship, single touch point, and you really have one way of purchasing the goods. And that's the legacy environment that we would know from a while ago. I think the millennials wouldn't realize that that was the only way that you could purchase goods. Then what we've had is multi-channel. And if I'm still using my example for, let's say, David Jones, where you'll go into the shop and you can order your goods, or alternatively, you can go online and order your goods. But the problem is, from a retail perspective, is those two channels are not connected. So the example I'll give you is you might have a look online and there might be a size 9 shoe that you're looking for, and that's something that you could order, but in fact you find yourself in the city, you go to David Jones, you walk into their store, you have a look at their store, you're looking for those shoes, the guy says, "I'm sorry, sir, we only have a size 10 available, we don't have the size 9. He has no idea that in fact he's got another store, which is his online store, that could satisfy your demand, but of course they're not connected. He doesn't have a single view of that product, and so you leave unsatisfied. And this is something that is happening all across businesses, where you may think that you're getting the similar look and feel from the organisation, but in the back end of their systems, of their marketing, they've probably got different direct-to-consumer divisions. You actually see multiple touch points and you're not getting that product from a simple and automated process. Internally within the business, typically the channels are different, typically the systems are different, and in fact there's a duplication of information right across the different channels. That's where most organisations have been, and when they're moving to at the moment, and a lot of money is being spent at the moment, is a cross-channel perspective. With a cross-channel, you still see multiple touch points. So if I take your example of, say, David Jones, what they've managed to do is they've now connected the back end, and that's why everyone is giving you loyalty cards and all of these cards where it doesn't matter if you go online or you go into the store, they can capture that information. So you get a single touch point and they can see you as a single customer. The problem is, though, that internally they're still operating independently, and even though they've got all of the information about you as a consumer, they're not able to give you a single experience or a common experience or common branding right across that channel. So where companies are aiming for, which we call omni-channel, is where you have the brand being shown irrespective of which channel you are going to. It's a common view, whether you're approaching that from an iPad, a tablet, your iPhone, walking into the store, picking up a catalogue, or even using a third party. You have a single view of the brand, and the organisation has a single view of you. Now what that is doing is placing a lot of pressure back on the businesses, because you can imagine going from the left-hand side, traditional single channel, right across to omni-channel. There's a lot of pressure being applied. There's a lot of integration that's required between online and the store. There's a lot of real-time information. You have to make sure all the stock levels are right. You have to make sure that the order replenishment is right, and you have to make sure that the branding is right. So that's, as I said, creating a lot of pressure. Some organisations are getting it right, but at the moment I would say in the industry, most people are going from sort of multi-channel probably into cross-channel. The other thing that is worth, sorry, I'll just go back here. So the other thing that's worthwhile from other considerations is how you actually purchase. In organisations, and I'm not sure exactly which role all of you have, but you would know that the traditional way of buying software was a capital project where you would have a software purchase, you'd have hardware purchase, you'd have a project team, both internal and external, you'd capitalise it all, that would go to the bottom line, and then depreciation would just be shown in the business units for the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. As vendors move to cloud computing, one of the considerations is normally when you get a cloud solution, because you don't own it, it's an operating cost. It's OPEX. And that's placed a lot of pressure because the money comes out of different budgets. From a cash flow perspective, it's different. From an operating cost and budgetary perspective, if you're implementing Salesforce as an example, typically if you're putting in a project before, it would have been an IT budget that you go and ask for the money. Now what's happening is that is being charged as OPEX to the sales P&L, which does two things. One thing is it changes the way the financial metric and structure is implemented. But the second thing is it means that the vendors can actually start having a conversation with the marketing department. And the marketing department has a budget. And so therefore you're getting multiple points of contact within the business. From a GFC and economic perspective, obviously organisations are not willing to spend as much money anymore. They're wanting to get much quicker paybacks. And so a lot of the investments that you're having to deal with are more short-term, more tactical, and it's very difficult to get some of these projects implemented. As I've said in the previous slides, the other thing is the businesses are changing, and so there's now digital strategies. There's multi-channels that I mentioned that we have to deal with, and also speed to market. There's also other competitors coming into the space. You know, who would have thought 20 years ago that Telstra would be the leading, or one of the leading internet provision companies in Australia. The other thing that is an aspect to consider is the board is asking questions, and they're asking questions of IT based on what customers are demanding. We have to be able to compete. We have to be able to monitor the competition, and it's not just in our own industry, but they're in adjacent industries as well. And these are things that the board is now interested in. So really, when you're looking at other considerations, there's a lot of other pressures being applied to the business, as well as, of course, what the customer is driving. So if I go into CIO now, so as you could expect, how I mentioned earlier that the customer is demanding more of the business, so the business turns around and demands more of the CIO. Now already you have the CIO with many, many hats, and so I've listed a few there, but there's a lot of different hats that the CIO wears. not just operating the business as an operations manager, but you're also looking at coming up with business strategies, and typically you've got a governance role. Now what we can't forget, of course, is the thing that you know and love if you're in the IT industry and you wonder why we actually get up and go to work every day, but it doesn't matter if the CEO can't access his system. That's something that you have to prioritize as number one, irrespective of what's happening. And of course, when anyone goes on holidays and they come back from holidays, of course it's your fault that they've forgotten their password. So there's a number of different roles that you have. And if you're adding all of the customer changes to that, then where do you go? And of course, if you're in the IT industry, you go to Gartner. And so what I've listed there is some of the business priorities on the left-hand side, and this is from the Gartner Executive Program. But if you have a look on the right-hand side with the technology priorities that we have to deal with, basically 6 or 7 of all of those technology priorities for 2013 are due to do with the customer placing pressure and the business having to respond and provide information back to the business. So it's quite critical for the IT professionals to be able to get the information they require for the different channels, to make the decisions, to look at the competitors, to govern what's happening with IT, coming up with alternatives for the business and innovation. And that, therefore, is placing a lot of pressure back on the ERP vendors. Because typically, most of the spend that you would have these days with IT would be with your ERP platform, unless you have a whole slew of different applications. But typically, your major spend is in the ERP area. So for you to be able to deliver those priorities, you have to make sure that you've got your ERP system in the right place. So on the next page, looking at Forbes ERP Predictions, and I don't want you to read all of this busy information there. I just wanted to look at what they were saying, and basically the comment there is there's a chaotic pace of change driven by customers, that the ERP systems must be agile and customer focused. We have to have a clear definition of customers and their roles. And then, from a bottom line perspective, you've got there that enterprises clinging to monolithic, inflexible ERP systems need to reevaluate how their strategies are coming together to serve their customers. And I think that by being customer-centric, you have to make sure that the ERP platform is able to deliver that to you. I've got an example of what ERP vendors are doing in that space. And this may appear to be a complex slide, but this is actually a workspace of a person's role. And so I'll get Todd later from Infor if anyone wants to ask him further questions about what Infor will do. But they're changing the way that their dashboard is. So this is what you see when you log into their system. And you can see that you've got different critical alerts that come through out of your processes. You've got generic tasks that you're required to do, like approve workflows and invoices and leave and that type of thing. And then on the right-hand side, you've got some of the social media interactions. And so it's very, very different from where we were before, even 5 years ago. And so this is an example how the vendors are changing, and they're taking into account how we operate and how we want to operate in the future. And you can see down the bottom there's also information on different statuses and trends also. So if you could imagine that you're getting all of this information in one place and you're needing to make decisions on this information, it's not the old traditional screen that you would have to drill down and run exception reports. All the information is provided to you. So this is just a sample of, with pressure being applied to the ERP vendors, how they're actually responding. So the key takeouts and the summary then of what I've been talking about is, firstly, customers and the users of technology are the ones that are driving and demanding change. And I'm sure that you'll have examples where this is happening across all industries. I don't think there are any industries these days that's not, the customer is not having an effect with changing how the business needs to be operated. So therefore the business has to react to that. If they don't react, they're not going to be as competitive. If they stay where they are, other competitors will surpass them, and they can do that from an innovative perspective, and some of the businesses could therefore lose relevance. What that means is the CIOs and IT managers, and I said some of the marketing people as well, have got a great opportunity to respond to that, because you've got the opportunity to transform the whole organisation to be able to deliver back to the company what you need to actually deliver value to the customers. And as I've said, that then places a lot of pressure back on the ERP vendors, because they have to innovate, they have to adapt, they have to make applications that we want to wake up to in the morning and be able to do our job before we leave. And that's something that the millennials are demanding from us. And I think most people in the world today are wanting simple applications, user-friendly, and something that is going to deliver customer value. So that's what I had, just from a general sort of thought starter presentation overview. As Hayden said, I've had experience both from a business perspective in sort of finance, marketing, and then into IT, IT management, CIO, and then into setting up direct business. So quite happy to stay on the line and answer questions that people may have. Or we've got Todd on the line as well from Infor. So Hayden, if you want to put it back to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Morris. Look, some good questions in from the audience. Thanks very much. There's one in here from Jake, and maybe drawing on your experience, Morris. Customers are obviously out there on a proliferation of devices. They've got the iPads, the iPod, the everything. Which ones are the most important to create solutions for, in your opinion?
Okay, well, I'll probably answer that in two parts. One is the new technologies that are out there at the moment that enable you to develop applications for all of those applications at once. So at the moment where you have to develop an iPhone app and get that certified by Apple, or you have to develop an Android app, there's technologies that enable you these days to do all of the platforms. So that's the first thing that's happening is when they're developed, you're saving the development costs. And so if the first one, let's say, is $50,000, to change that into a iPhone, if you developed an Android or alternative, then it's only going to cost you about another $5,000. So that's the first part, is the technology vendors. As to which is the platform, who knows? I think Apple would say it was them, and Samsung would say it was Android. So I really don't know which one is which one I'm going to bank on. I think it's anyone's guess, but I do believe that the two aspects is, one is technology development is changing, and the second one is, I think, really to answer the question, would probably be both at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Question here from Patrick. Maybe if you can draw on some experiences you've had of companies that have done the full omni-channel solution, and maybe ones that we all know of and have engaged in those channels, and if you know some detail about how they've gone about it, what I guess the big steps that they took to get on the journey.
Yeah, probably. If I could give a different example, I'll be a politician and won't answer that question correctly, Patrick. But so make sure you type in your message if I'm not giving you what you want. Typically, vendors are giving a customer a common look and feel, even if behind the scenes it's sort of ugly. And so I mean, a classic example of that is, to start off with, and I know they're not omni-channel, but say Amazon. When Amazon started, they had a website, and in the back end they were getting books sent from all over the place. They kept their front end while they put money, time and effort into their distribution systems to make it more effective, but from a customer engagement perspective it looked to be exactly the same. And so people have been doing that. They've been masking the front end while they spend time and effort and putting a lot of dollars into the back end. I mean, I think that the supermarkets now are probably getting that right. I mean, if you look at what Woolworths have done and what Coles have done with their whole online offering, you can basically log into the stores or walk into the store, and the product, the whole database of product is the same. The look and feel is quite similar. Some of the applications are quite clunky, but that would be some examples that we all use for that. I think other vendors such as Qantas are starting to get that right with their overall look and feel and branding, and using their online channel a lot better. So, I mean, they're just a few examples of that.
Yeah, it's just something that's constantly improving and getting better and better. It's just amazing what you can do these days. Another question that came in actually in the registration process around self-service, and again talking about the mobile devices, whether you were aware of any research on the adoption rates through mobile aware tools relative, and this is about self-service, I guess, rates via the traditional online versus people out and about on their mobile devices.
Okay, so I actually do have some information on this, just purely because I had a presentation from the National Australia Bank a couple of weeks ago, and mobile banking has increased by 3,000% in the last 3 years. So in terms of the adoption of mobile, it's extremely significant. And interestingly enough, some of their internet, so it's not as though it's taken away from internet. Internet is still growing as well, just general internet, but mobile adoption is where they're putting a lot of time and effort and money, and they believe that that is going to continue to grow at sort of 30 to 50% over the next 3 to 5 years. That's per year.
Yeah, makes the business case somewhat more compelling when you hear those sorts of numbers. Morris mentioned that we had Todd in the wings, Todd Hunt from Infor. We were just in preparing for the webinar, we were talking about collaboration solutions, and a question has come in from Jeannie on that. Just looking at it from the customer help desk perspective, just how do the collaboration solutions work? Where do they sit? Are they a new environment you've got to bring people onto? Are they being plugged into the call center systems directly? So maybe Todd, if you want to pick that one up and talk over. Morris, if you maybe can bring up that slide, it might help Todd in the process.
Which slide? The Todd's one?
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of the collaboration, really it's all about trying to understand from a user perspective what the market is looking to do, and if you take this from, I'm starting to feel old, a Gen Y perspective, which is the 30-year-olds now within our organizations, the way that they use social media, Facebook and so on, to disseminate information, share that across a group of their friends and colleagues, you can now start to do that within an organization. To take the enterprise applications, and if you look just on that right-hand side, and you see that social interaction there, it's allowing you to post information where you want to share that within an organization, and once you post it, the underlying infrastructure, the underlying application will pick up the information that you're working with. For example, there was a problem with the Norm Richardson, I think is the person there, the customer service rep, and there's a problem with delivery of equipment to a customer. When he posts the information required, it actually picks up the components within the ERP so that whoever looks at that post can now drill down and find out why there's a delay in shipment. So they can share that in a social environment within the organization. That can be done across all of the infor products now, and certainly we integrate and provide through our application layer ION the ability to do that with other applications such as SAP and others.
Yeah, great. I guess it's always a bit scary from a user's perspective of what's going on in the back end with some of those things that the CIO has to worry about, Morris. Question here from Justin, a little bit in the same vein. Are there, and really I'd probably ask the same question slightly differently. He's asked if are there CRM solutions in the marketplace that use and access the wide range of social media and pulling social media from multiple places. But I guess from my perspective, I sort of think it from the perspective of who's going to win the race. You know, is it CRM? Is it ERP? Is it going to be service help desk products that are going to be the collaboration point? Where is the most effort and investment going on?
Do you want me to answer that first, or do you want Todd to?
Morris, you go ahead.
Okay. What I was going to say is, it's really what the customer is wanting to do at any one point in time that will answer that question. And so you need to have a CRM, and really whether it's Salesforce or SAP or one of the Oracle environments or even another vendor, you need to have customer information. With ERPs, you typically need to have financial, logistics, other HR and other information. What the art, in my opinion, is going to be is the vendors turning around and getting pieces of that information, integrating it together and providing it to the person that really has got the request. So if you're walking into a, let's take the David Jones store, if you're walking into that store, then you want that store to know who you are and what you've purchased, and you get your special discounts, and so it's a CRM focus. If you're supplying to David Jones, then you want it to be a logistics focus. And so I think that the two things, one is you need to integrate that at the back end, and that is a big challenge, because unless you go with one big ERP vendor that's supposedly able to do everything for you, you're going to have, I think that there is a sort of a move to have a number of different applications all integrated. So that's the first thing. But the second one is the art of being able to give the customer what they want and nothing else. I think gone are the days where you've got 100 variables on a screen and you have to try and work out which 5 you need. I think people are just wanting to be given those 5 variables. So Todd, I don't know what you think from a vendor perspective, what you're seeing in that landscape.
You're absolutely right, and you're quite right. It's where the record of truth is held. CRMs are all about the individual experience. The ERP is about that financials and product. So how do you bring them together? So we've actually started down that path a while back. Again, using that product we talked about, ION, which is a connectivity layer through infor. So for example, you can now receive a much more detailed version through salesforce.com, and that integrates into our back-end system. So you do get that much broader view of a customer and their requirements. And really that's what it's all about, making sure you can get all the data you need when you need it.
Okay, great, guys. Question here from Paul.
Does that answer Justin's question?
I guess his question was, are there specific CRM solutions that are using and accessing the wide range of social media? Todd, I'm sure, will say that, yes, of course there are, our ones.
Well, I'm sure there's others too, but we're certainly doing it now.
Yeah, I certainly, from our perspective, we've seen from all of the CRM vendors, virtually without exception, they're introducing the social media feeds, particularly LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter are kind of, I guess, entry level these days with those types of solutions. So yes. So a question from Paul, and I apologise, folks, for the echo going on, but hopefully you can still make out what I'm saying. To what extent do you see this phenomenon with customers and the demands that they're making on businesses spilling over into the government sector and government services? Morris.
Yeah, my answer is a lot. So I don't know if you've or applied for any information. They're changing quite a lot. So they're obviously taking a different path. They're not being driven by the dollar in the first instance. They're being driven by a customer service metric. So they're wanting to make sure that they're providing a level of service, and of course people are wanting to access their own information and change it, rather than traditionally with government where you'd have to either go into an office or you'd call them. What they're doing is they're publishing or presenting their information online, or even presenting your own information online, and so you can go and make changes to that. Because I know that there are a few people in government that I know are spending a lot of time and effort, but a lot of that's being driven by a customer service metric.
Yeah, just to add to that, Morris, we are looking at quite a change from a local government perspective as well, where they've taken or they've looked at applications, iPhone applications and so on, for example, like CityWatch, which is designed to, by the individual constituents, they can walk around their neighbourhood and take photos of cracked sidewalks or graffiti or whatever that needs to be addressed by the local council, and then can send that information back in, and that's fed into their customer systems. So most organisations, most government entities are wanting to get closer to their constituents and address the issues that they have.
All right, great, guys.
I don't see it. Sorry, I don't see it being any different with the pressure being placed on the ERP vendors, whether you're government or in a commercial sector.
Yeah, I think that's correct. We're seeing every day there's new services engaging with government online. Can only get better and broader. They sometimes take a fairly clunky approach, but I guess that's the nature of the beast. Question in from Peter, and again a little bit back into the IT space with how to deliver these solutions. But is HTML5, do everything on HTML5 and your woes about platform go away?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing a little bit of that. So, that means, I think Qantas do that, and I think Virgin have done that as well, where you log in and you think you're getting an app, but in fact you get just an HTML5 screen that's valid and works across all the platforms and all the networks. Yeah, I don't know. As I said, that there are technologies that will deliver irrespective of platform, but I know that some vendors are using it. See, I think that it's a bit of a fad at the moment that everyone needs to have an iPhone app. It's a bit similar where everyone previously had to have a Facebook page, or a web presence, even if you don't do anything to it. And I've sort of said in the past that in a lot of cases, the only people that visit the websites are the marketing managers that have put it in place. The marketing guys think it's a beautiful looking website, but people don't use it. You've got when you get a whole of business strategy, that's when it really comes to the fore. And I think that same thing with social media. It's trying to work out how it integrates from an omni-channel perspective. And I think it also, if I can pick up on I think it was Justin's question that we didn't answer, which was, CRM sort of connecting in with social media. I think at the moment it's probably not enough. I think the information they capture on customer would be through interactions that come through direct engagement with the company. What they're not picking up is and integrating all of the discussions about the company. there are organisations out there, and I think IBM and others have done this in the past, where you can go and get some research done, and there's tools out there to find out what people are saying about the brands on social media, but I don't think it's really integrated. It's more at a project level. It's not integrated in the rest of the business at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Another one here from Patrick, who asked the question earlier about omni-channel. Just from a CRM perspective, you know, a lot of failed implementations, a lot of caution around the value of CRM implementations. And he's talking about how do you get the business case over the line with senior management and boards. Has what's going on in this space made that a lot easier, given the proliferation of people with phones? They're seeing it themselves, even at that senior level. They're starting to understand the value. Maybe just from your experience, Morris, talking about business case and justification of these solutions.
Okay, yeah, that's good, Patrick. I would say that the business case of CRM is probably the ability to control things like pricing, you know, the debtors, so that when you are going on site and you're wanting to sell some of the products, and I think, Todd, can you put yourself on mute for a second, sorry? Hayden, sorry. Just that I'm hearing myself twice, and for you guys, hearing once is probably enough. So what I was going to say is, with the business cases, a lot of it is regarding the standardisation of things like controlling your pricing schedules to make sure that the reps are not giving away more than they need to, with a workflow, make that if there are deals that are being done, they can be signed off very quickly, standardising with pricing structures also to make sure that if you're about to go and do a major deal with a customer that owes you millions of dollars, you're not doing that, so it reduces the risk. Also the feedback, so that if you're using some of the products that have, I mean, Salesforce, for example, has Chatter as a social media aspect where you can communicate right from the front line through to the call center or to other people within the organisation. So therefore you're increasing the response rate, is another sort of metric that's often used, and generating sales, because you've got a lot more information and richness about the customer. If you've got multi-divisions, that's something that, even though one division is dealing with that customer, if another division is going and wanting to do work with that customer, you can get a lot more rich information than going to, you know, sort of internally trying to have meetings with everyone to find it all out. And so a lot of the CRM applications I know are not that expensive. If you're going with some of the hosted cloud solutions, you know, there are a couple, I don't know, I'm sure we're not going to get the whole infor pricing, but you know, you're looking for sort of these days a couple of $1,000s a person a year. So when you're having the amount of sales and the justification that you're going to generate additional sales and save cost through pricing and standardization, it's something that CRM, I'm not seeing really a lot of pressure being applied. In fact, there's a lot more pressure being the traditional ERP, because they're looking at what value you're getting as opposed to some of the CRM add-ons.
All right, great. Thank you, Morris. Listen, we're coming up to 50 minutes into it, so I'll probably draw to a close. I think we've addressed all the questions that have come in. If we have missed any, then apologies. Thank you, Morris, and to Todd for your answers. I'll just grab the controls back. Just want to run through some of the... Just in the exit survey, when you leave the webinar today, you'll have pop up in another browser window a survey. Please just answer that, get the details. And oops, hang on, I'll show my screen. Click the right button, and also confirm your address as you go out of there. There's also an option there for a white paper to select. If you'd like to get your hands on that, it's some Aberdeen research and consolidation of a fair bit of research in there from Infor, just on selecting ERP solutions and what you should be looking for. And some of these customer service aspects are to the fore in that paper. So just check that out as you go. And also keen to get feedback on today's session. You're not allowed to complain about the audio because we already know about that. Just to also give a thanks to our sponsor, Infor, today. Infor has over 70,000 customers across 200 countries. They're one of the big ones up there with the SAPs and Oracles. Infor Sightline and Infor M3, Infor Purchase Lawson. So M3 is their leading ERP solution. Just a couple in a big stable of solutions in ERP. They've got integration solutions called Ion, which is their middleware solution. They also have a collaboration platform called Mingle, which is the screenshot that Todd talked to earlier. There's a bunch of information and resources up on their website, so do go and check them out at www.infor.com. So thanks very much to Infor. All right, so that's pretty much our presentation today. Thank you very much, Morris, for your time, for coming in, and also to Todd, and thanks everyone in the audience for getting along today. Morris's contact details are up there on the screen. If you do want to get in touch with him, then please do so. Look out also in your inbox for the invitation to the next lunchbox, which will be on the 30th of October. Thanks, everyone. I'll bring it to a close now. Goodbye.